Hey, welcome back. This is Joe Fugandes with Berkshire Hathaway. Welcome to Joe Knows Paradise. It's an informative time today. We're going to kind of talk about two different subjects on our next two podcasts. The first of which is going to be hurricane preparedness and afterwards. And I'm so thankful to have Robby Phillips here with Empire Inspections. We're going to get into it right away and just kind of talk about what you can do prior and what you can do post, trying to make sure that your biggest investment stays your biggest investment. So, Robby, give us kind of what's been going on in your world first, and then we'll get into the hurricane stuff.
Well, of course, obviously we've had several weeks worth of a couple of storms that we thought may end up coming our area. You never know till they get here, but obviously the state of Florida has suffered dramatically over the last few weeks with hurricanes that have affected us, and obviously we've been part of that in the past, so which always puts everyone on alert. So what do you do when you see that there's the potential of a storm coming? Obviously there's the simple things around the house that you don't want to try to have a lot of flying debris. You want to make sure that tools and equipment are picked up, kids' toys are picked up, because all of those objects, if they do get lifted up, can be thrown into your residence. And obviously one of the things we have on homes sometimes now is hurricane screens, shutters, Bahamas, impact glass, and all those things are protective, but we don't want to put undue stress on those items by having things from our yards fly around and land into those openings and can cause further water intrusion or wind in a hurricane. So prepping before a storm oftentimes is getting things picked up. Another thing that we don't necessarily want to wait until the day before, but again, as we have said in the past, maintenance is a big thing. You're going to end up with a lot of sideways wind. You're going to get a lot of swirling wind. So again, maintenance of caulk around windows and door openings. Again, garage door weather strip, front doors, back doors, weather strip. Making sure all of those areas are sealed are things that you can do preemptively to make sure that you don't have water intrusion again during a hurricane.
Is there any of your exterior stuff, when you guys are going in, and I know you do insurance inspections as well, but when you guys are going in, and maybe you've done them post-hurricane, are there things that kind of shocked you that, for instance, your air compressors outside for your HVAC system? I mean, a lot of people just ignore the fact that they've got to be bolted down, and some of your vendors ignore the fact that they need to be bolted down.
Sure.
But do you see that kind of stuff? Is that part of that checklist of not just picking up debris, but making sure that things are solidly?
Yes, it is. Absolutely. That's a very good point. And you're correct that all new installation ever since 2003, we've supposed to have been having fasteners, brackets. All your condominiums have a large metal rack system that your air handler or your condenser gets mounted to, that is supposed to be strapped, bolted. It doesn't necessarily mean you got to go up and over the top of that unit with a come along or something. But there are L brackets that are supposed to be mounted to the platform. And again, those over time, especially if, say, it's 15 years old and that unit's still there and it's working fine, but the brackets will oftentimes deteriorate, rust, corrode, and they're not going to hold. So that is another very valid point, that in the going around of your home, making sure that those are well secured and maybe need some additional attention so that it doesn't pull or snatch out, because then those connections are going to leak and you're going to run out of AC when it's hot after the storm.
All right, so a lot of the folks down here, we had Sally, which was only a tropical storm.
Right.
Didn't quite make Cat 1. We had Michael 5 years ago that affected this area a little bit, a little more east it really affected.
Correct.
But as far as our area where we're sitting now, it did. Talk to me about how you've seen through the years as an inspector, water intrusion and instead of flood, how we talk about water intrusion versus flood and how that can affect the high winds in the water and where you check that kind of stuff to make sure that you're not getting an inordinate amount of water coming from intrusion versus rising water, which is flood water.
Right. So again, this kind of goes back to a lot of the insurance during 2020, 2021, where insurance industry as a whole in the state of Florida got to where if roofs were 15 years or older, it was replace. And I think the contention came from, well, my manufacturer's warranty says that this is a 30-year architectural shingle, and why has it got to be replaced at 15 years? There were still roofs that were put on prior to some of the new nailing codes, and I think that insurance was trying to get to a place, because of storms, that these roofs were up to the most current nailing standards. Another thing that has become more prevalent even in our building code is secondary water barrier, which allows there to be a peel and stick membrane applied directly to the plywood, not your old 3-tab shingle underneath a dimensional shingle is not considered secondary water.
Right.
Even though I get that it could allow for some form of protection, the wind mitigation report states that it's self-adhering directly to the plywood. So now, here we are, fast forward, thousands and thousands of homes in the state of Florida have, because of these pushes, are now meeting requirements that are, number one, a higher wind speed, which is these hurricanes are before, if you remember, like you were just saying, these older storms that were there, and even we can go back to Ivan and Dennis and Katrina and these types of storms that were ripping. I mean, you'd go through a subdivision and just all you see plywood. I mean,
Right.
So now when there is some shingle damage, you end up with a peel and stick membrane that stays and stops some of that intrusion. So you mentioned what do we do after? How do we stop that? What do we look for? Well, you definitely, before that storm, if you get a chance, and I've mentioned before that you should maintenance, you should find someone, a roofer, inspector, myself, safely walk a roof. Look around your chimneys, look around your vent stacks, look around your plumbing vent stacks, your gas stacks. Any penetrations that come through your roof are areas where, when there are high winds and rain that is oftentimes more lateral and not necessarily vertical, those points are what cause water to come in. And so these roofs that are applied with secondary water are now able to withstand that. If there is some shingle damage, there doesn't necessarily mean that there's infiltration into the home, which causes the water intrusion.
Okay. That, obviously with the high winds and some of this stuff, and what they've seen down in, the peninsula has been just crazy
Yep.
this year. But obviously high winds are going to drive. Water's going to find a way.
Yes.
Somehow or another. And I've seen it sweat through the bricks.
Yeah.
So, and around the windowsills that you just had caulked. You never would have thought that it could happen. But, wind-driven rain is a big deal. So anything, I know anything I can do at my house, we're making sure that we can do it, and we get it, sealed up as best we can. But I don't think there's any way to keep it
No.
from happening. It's going to happen somewhere, but you've just got to make sure you catch it after the fact, and do as much as you can before the fact, so that it's minimalized.
Yep.
What other suggestions do you have for anybody prepping their house for hurricane, or
Um,
any type of? We've had tornadoes this week, so
Yeah.
in other parts, so you can't really prep for that. But just general. We talked about the general maintenance, but is there any one item that really can make a difference in?
Opening protection is probably the largest, and through all the studies that have been done during storms and over the years, obviously hurricanes produce high winds, flying debris, and again, some of these items you can do ahead of time. And obviously, the easier that the items you pick, plywood is not easy to deploy. Every storm you've ever seen, every hurricane, somebody goes down to Home Depot and you see them hauling out sheets of plywood by the hundreds, because that will help penetrate or prevent a penetration. The number one cause of a house imploding is the pressure. Once a large opening, front door, garage door, once it cavitates and it opens up, now it's like blowing up a balloon. When the pressure, the thing that everyone thinks is, well, it's just more water, and as long as I, put sandbags against the bottom edge of my garage door, then I should be okay, even if my yard fills up with water. The problem isn't that, it's pressure. The storm that we just had come through reached some of the closest barometric pressures that we've ever seen, that it got so low that the pressure is what causes that house to implode on itself. And yes, there's metal strapping and hurricane clips and truss plates and all of these things to try to hold all that together, but your opening protection, that is probably your number one defense against hurricanes, tornadoes. I get you can't stop a tornado, but that again is that sucking pressure. We've all seen movies, we've all seen video. If you ever stay during a storm, I'm not suggesting that in obviously severe conditions, you can actually go to near a window in the middle of a storm getting in, that starts to pass over you, and you can see that window or that door begin to flex. Yes. So if that door comes out, then the envelope of the structure, the exterior walls, are going to begin to flex. And so maintenance is not an issue at that point. It's what am I going to do to defend?
Right.
You come up with a lot of football analogies, but if the hole is open, a touchdown is inevitable. You've got to plug the hole. So shutters, accordions, Bahamas, Kevlar screens, impact-rated products, all of these things are what are going to go into stopping the best chance you have of damage during a storm.
That's some great information, Robby, on hurricane preparedness and, post when people are repairing their houses, what they need to upgrade to. And it's not really an upgrade, it's a necessity.
Yep.
To make sure that you maintain the biggest investment you got. So thanks for the information. Again, this is Joe Fugandes, Joe Knows Paradise. We appreciate you tuning in. Hope you'll continue to watch these videos. Reach out to us if you have any questions. You can DM me directly. We look forward to hearing from you, and we'll try to get your questions answered from a professional like Robby that does this all day long.